Hey World History, welcome to U3-L2 Persian Empire. So make sure that you are following along with your study guide for today. So just a reminder with your study guide. So here's a look at your Unit 3 study guide right here. When you are taking notes, you are more than welcome to go into my pink resource folder and copy and paste directly from the slideshow. But make sure it is from, my slideshow. And also, if you just want to take your own notes and your own words, that's great too. Like I said back in Unit 2, that is really good note taking skills that you're being built. Either way is fine with me. Just wanted to kind of give you a reminder about that. So, all right, let's get started for today. Like I said before, you're going to follow along with your study guide. Questions I will ask you during the video today that are in blue text are going to be questions that I want you to answer directly in the Edpuzzle. Any important concepts on the study guide will be in red text. And of course, if you do have any questions, please let me know. I am more than happy to help you out. So learning targets, you can identify the geographical range of the Persian Empire, explain characteristics of religion in Persia. So we're going to talk about Zoroastrianism today, which is a very interesting religion, and identify major rulers of Persia. So you're like, wait a minute, Miss Corey, aren't we supposed to be learning about the Greeks? I mean, this is the ancient Greece unit. You're right. But before we talk about the Greeks, we have to talk about the Persians because they have a lot of intermixing history. So you get it like Persian rugs, get it like Persian cats that are on like the fancy feast, cat food. Always love cat pictures. Okay, so Persian Empire, what was it? It is also called the Achaemenid Empire. So if you ever see like Achaemenid Empire and Persian Empire, they mean the same thing, just FYI. So the Persian Empire lasted from 559 until 334 BCE. There are some very famous rulers. We're going to focus on these three today. The first one's called Cyrus the Great. And then you also have Darius I, and then Xerxes I. Now, we'll talk about Xerxes a lot more when we talk about some of our later lessons with the Persian Wars. So, the Persian Empire ended in 334 BCE when this dude called Alexander the Great conquered Persia. And we'll get to Alexander the Great in lesson 9. So, I know, you kind of have to like jump ahead of yourself before you can like really talk about the details. All right, so here is the map of the Persian Empire. Now, this map is from about 480 BCE. So in kind of this darker blue blob, that is where the Persian Empire originated. So today that would be modern day Iran. And then you can see that the Persian Empire was very extensive. So it went all the way until what is modern day Greeks, all the way over here into modern day India. You can also see that it had parts of Egypt and went all the way up here towards the Black and Caspian Sea. So, the Persian Empire, the original homeland, like I said before, is in modern day Iran. It is rich in copper, tin, iron, gold, and silver. And it conquered old but massive empires and land in order to gain this massive size of an empire. So some of those more older and smaller empires included Anatolia, which we learned about in Unit 1, is right over here in like modern day Turkey. Also the Babylonian Empire, the Assyrian Empire. We talked very briefly about those two in Unit 1. And then, of course, the Egyptian Empire as well. They dominated that. So, in textbooks and people with surface level knowledge of Persia, think of the Persian Empire as, quote unquote, evil. Why do you think some people may think that? Just give me your best guess. Yeah, it's going to be all about the resources. So resources, 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 and biases. So most of the info that we know about the Persians today was written by the Greeks, okay? So the Greeks did not talk very kindly about the Persians, and this is why. Because Persia wanted to take over Greek land. That, of course, made the Greeks very mad at the Persians, and so the Greeks are going to talk smack about the Persians. So that's why a lot of biases are against the Persians today. It's just because they're not friends. The Greeks were the ones that wrote a lot about them. So let's talk about some of the great rulers. The first one is Cyrus the Great. So he ruled from 559 until 530. So remember, when you see a date with an R in front of it, that just means the date that that person ruled, not that the date that person lived. So Cyrus organized the Persian Empire into three social classes. The first class was the warriors, which included aristocrats and royalty. Then you have the priests. Those were the religious leaders, and they also would perform sacrifices. And then, of course, you had the peasants, which included the villagers, farmers, and shepherds. One of the really interesting things that the Persians did, specifically Cyrus, is once he and his army would conquer a new land, instead of forcing all those like new people into the Persian ways, he actually respected their local religions and traditions and let them keep it instead of like forcing the Persian culture onto the newly conquered lands. Then we got Darius I. So he ruled from 522 until 486 BCE. And he conquered land as far east as modern-day India and as west as modern-day Austria and Germany, which is crazy to even think about. And he also expanded the Persia's navy. And probably one of the biggest things that he's known for is building this canal. So it's called the Canal of Pharaohs. You can see here on the map. So this is of like Egypt. Okay, so we talked about the Nile a lot in Unit 2. So here's the Nile. This is the delta of the Nile going into the Mediterranean Sea. So the thing about the Nile, it is super duper close to the Red Sea, but they actually don't connect with each other. So Darius was like, hey, you know what would be cool if we connected the Nile with the Red Sea? So he made people build a canal from the Nile to the Red Sea. And now remember, this was like a few thousand years before they had like bulldozers and like diggers and stuff like that we have today. This was all dug out by hand. Could you imagine that? That's crazy. And the canal was so well built that it actually lasted until 767 CE. Today it is dried up, but you can still see like the big like divot in the land of where the canal once was. All right, and then we have Xerxes. So we'll talk about him a little bit more when we talk about the Battle of Thermopylae, because that's such a cool thing to talk about. So he ruled from 486 to 465 BCE. And he respected and made buildings in honor of a lot of Assyrian kings, which was really interesting because remember, Assyria was his own empire that the Persians actually took over. But he still had a lot of respect for like the Assyrian kings and their history. And he also adopted a lot of the art style of Assyria. And again, we'll talk about him later on in the unit as well. So another really big historical site is something called the Stairwell at Persepolis. And this was, of course, a Persian like art building project. So the thing that they built is called a Apadana, which is a massive event center building for Darius I and Xerxes. It's what's here pictured. Of course, there would have been a roof, a couple thousand years ago, but as you probably could imagine, that probably collapsed. But you can still see a lot of the big pillars, and also the staircase are still there today. And this massive building had rich people's weddings, coronations, funerals, and New Year's festivals, and every single inch of the building inside and outside is decorated in reliefs. And what reliefs are they're like kind of shallow etchings on walls. I'll show you a close-up picture in the next slide. So these are reliefs, okay, where they're kind of a little 3D. Um, so they're just shallow etchings. So here's a question for you. What do you notice about the reliefs in the picture? What are these people doing and what are they carrying? Yeah, so you might see a lot of different things. So the people in relief actually present real people in like the real life. So they're not just like, characters that you might doodle on a wall or anything. Each person that's etched in here represents a real person that lived. And some of these people are ambassadors for other nations, nobles, members of the court. Some of them are carrying animals, like you see here, for sacrifice. So this dude's carrying like a sheep or something. And they're also carrying other gifts for Persian rulers as well. Yes, this is kind of a cool thing to talk about. So this religion is called Zoroastrianism. And we're going to talk about that for the next few slides. So this is the religion that the Persian rulers practiced during the Persian Empire. Whoops. So Zoroastrianism is an ancient religion. So why do people care about studying it? So let me ask you this. Why are ancient religions important to study? Give me your best answer. Yeah, so there's a lot of different answers, but a lot of it has to revolve around that, well, first of all, this religion still practiced today, and some aspects of this religion stem into the modern day. So, like I said before, this is the religion that Persian rulers practiced. Again, it is still around today. There's about 100,000 people who practice it, mostly people in Iran and India, but there's also a small population in Illinois that are also Zoroastrianists. So here's a modern day picture of them. So Zoroastrianism is the first long-term monotheistic religion to be created, as far as historians know, because it was created all the way back in 1700 BCE. So in Zoroastrianism, there's only one god. That god's name is Ahura Mazda. And Zoroastrianism believes that humanity is in a constant struggle of good, which would be represented by God, and evil, which was represented by a devil. Individuals are rewarded or punished for good or bad behaviors in the afterlife. And Zoroastrianism was also used as a justification to conquer new territories. So, for example, like if Darius wanted a new territory and he wanted to go conquer it, he would be like, well, those people need to be under Zoroastrianism. They need to know justice, so I'm going to go conquer them. So that's why it was used as justification. They're also very environmentally conscious. So human excretion could not contaminate bodies of water. I mean, which is a really good thing if you think about it. And fire was worshipped at altars, like you can see here in this picture. The dead were either buried or they were left out and eaten by wild animals. So they did not use cremation because fire was considered too sacred to cremate bodies. And also, bodies just couldn't be left out in the open because rotting dead bodies were too unhealthy for the top of the earth. So Zoroastrianists, anyway, believed in one god and a devil with demon followers. They believe in a heaven and hell. They believe in a Messiah. A Messiah is a savior to a group of religious people. The end of time would come once the Messiah would come again. They also believe in 6 days of creation of the earth. There was also a covenant, which is a religious promise made with God and a mortal human. That mortal human is going to be their main prophet, Zoroaster, which is pictured right here. That's Zoroaster. So Zoroastrianists also celebrate the winter solstice on December 21st. To celebrate this holiday, they decorate their house in red. They also cut down pine trees, put them in their house, decorate them, and leave gifts under them. They also gather with family and friends to share gifts and food. And another kind of cool little tip is not as significant, but it's when Zoroastrianism was still a young religion, people also would worship the Assyrian god Mithra, who was born on December 25th. So here's a modern day picture of one of those trees that they would decorate. It's called a Yalda tree. Hmm. Yeah, some of this sounds pretty familiar. So, if you're wondering, like, hey, wait, I feel like I've like seen these characteristics before. Yeah, that's right. So historians do actually relate Zoroastrianism to Abrahamic religions such as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Um, s- so you got to remember Zoroastrianism is super duper old. Like I said before, it was made about 1700 BCE, and it became super popular in about the 500s BCE. And the Torah, which is the Jewish religious text, was made about 450 BCE. So Zoroastrianism historically is older than the Torah. So roots of Jewish religion may go all the way back to about 2000 BCE. So it's really kind of this historical debate about like influence from one religion to the other. I could get into it all day. I won't. So we'll just keep on moving on. So today we learned about the Persian Empire, Cyrus the Great, Darius I, Xerxes, and Zoroastrianism. So next up, you're going to do U3-L3, the geography of ancient Greece. There's nothing for you to write in your study guide for that one. Just answer the questions directly on the Ed Puzzle. I will be grading that as Ed Puzzle based on what questions you get right or wrong. So make sure you are paying attention. And after that, you're going to do U3-L4, Ancient Greece Basics. And if you have questions or want to learn more, please let me know. I'm more than happy to help. All right, bye.